Hi, everybody. I am Marco Houwen. I am the founder and head coach of Zentrapreneur.com. And I am today talking about what it means to grow deeply inside so that you really can create this prosperity you want to have outside in your life, rather than trying to be prosper outside, but don't feel it in yourself.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, the #1 place where we uncover real stories behind people creating meaningful impact in business and in life. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga. And if you've ever felt like maybe success on the outside doesn't always match the peace on the inside, I think this episode is for you, because today we're going to be diving into how you can build a business that's both profitable and peaceful, and the kind that actually grows because you have personally grown. And who better to guide us through this other than somebody who literally knows growth from the ground up, and quite literally. Our guest today, Marco Houwen, started off as a farmer and then became a tech entrepreneur who now helps leaders cultivate what he calls their growth identity through his business, Zentrapreneur. Now, Mark, welcome to the show.
Hi, Prosper. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm really excited about this, and I can't wait to jump into your journey from farmer to tech entrepreneur, and how you're helping people, figure out their inner wisdom and collaborate that with the impact that they wish to make in the world. So obviously you've gone from farming to now dealing with consciousness. And I think you've actually really mastered the art of growth. But I've got to ask you, now that you've moved into the technology side of things, do you ever wake up early in the morning like the farmers do, to either water their crops or to feed their animals?
Well, what is interesting, the only thing which is left still from being a farmer for me is that actually I wake up very early every morning. And that never left me. And honestly, one of the most beautiful things my father gave me is like 5:15 in the morning, I'm up and start my daily rituals, which is a very powerful thing for me. But yes, on more serious note, yes, there is a longing sometimes for not only psychological, mental, or spiritual growth, but also just making your hands dirty, like the real way. So that's for sure. But there are reasons why that's not the case and why that's not my focus anymore.
Absolutely. But if we can maybe go back to that particular time of your life, you did mention your father, being a part of what you've been doing. Just tell us a little bit about your come up. What was
so I am literally so I literally say always I was conceived to take over the family farm. So I have a sister which is older than me, so which my father loves dearly, but in a patriarchal way of thinking, that's not the one who takes over the business. And so he was very happy to have a son. Now, that in a sense is that pressure I felt. Now, if it was real or not, actually, it's not so much the question anymore. It was real for me, and as such, it became real. But there was this pressure of having to fulfill my father's wish of taking over the farm. So I was struggling with that most of my life, my young life, for various reasons. Which we can go into. It'll take a lot of time. There was a lot of a lot of negative energy, a lot of negative input on the farm, because it wasn't only my father but his brother and so on. There was a lot of things which were actually already telling me at a very young age that I should go another way, but my personal, my ambition to please my father was stronger. So that's what I did. So I started. I went to agriculture school and graduated there, and then I went for a year on another farm, a competitor. But actually, more for me to try to prove myself that I can do it. And when I came back, it took me literally 2 months to say no. Now I'm gone. I will never come back. It was a very, very tough time, but in a sense, and it might become more clear over the turn of this interview, but it was my first liberation. I liberated myself from that self-imposed pressure to have to take over and to walk away somebody else imposes. And yeah, that's where that's this phase of my life. It was very intense, as you may imagine. We got up early, we worked late. It was psychologically intense because of the situations I talked a little bit about. And in a sense, when that was over, I released. Now this is, you talked about haunting me on TikTok, so this might haunt me on TikTok. When I stopped working at the farm, I literally went for a few months to run unofficially run a pub. So, but I was probably the best customer during that time, and one time, and it was not Fanta or Coke. Coca-Cola I was drinking, and at one moment in time, we will never forget. It was the 31st of December, and I was looking myself early morning. At that time, no early getting up. So at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, "If you go on like that, that's exactly where you will stay, and you are doomed." And so I said, "Okay, tonight will be the last night, and then I will stop." And I always say that there are books to be written about that night. And then I stopped. So it was the first time then I really took into my own hands my willpower and said that that's not the way I want to live. And I decided, I looked for a job, got a job, and so on. Yeah, you have to interrupt me, because if I get on the roll, I will speak for an hour just like that.
Absolutely. Now, Marco, thank you so much for taking us through that. Now, just to sort of have an idea, was this a farm, crops, or were you dealing with
both? So it was a dairy farm and it was a crop farm. So we did it all. So we needed to be at the cows and at the animal barn every morning early, like 5:30, 6 o'clock. And then you had all the other work of the normal farming, agricultural farming, crops and so on. Yes,
absolutely. Now, you also did highlight a little bit of a difference in the treatment between yourself and your sister. Now, my question is, was there an expectation from the parents that you were definitely going to take this farm, and they actually, had to make you live up to that expectation?
As I said, these things are always, and actually also very relevant for business. We always work with our own perception, and that's the only thing which is real. My perception for sure was that this expectation was there. Was that there? Yes, it was, but it's only me who saw it like that. In that sense, that I could have taken another way. I took that as a sacred, as something which was really pushed or imposed on me, and I took it on till the day I didn't. And my life was today, it isn't anymore, but at that time it was, when the decision was taken, like a deep emotional decision was taken, there was nothing which could change my mind, even not my father, who was the one who ran everything till I was 21. So there was this decision taken at one moment in time to not take it over, and then it was like that, and it put me into huge amount of challenges personally, money-wise, obviously, everything, because I was the pariah out of the family for a lot of years. So I needed to somehow from scratch created something, and yeah, I needed to reconstruct myself. Now, that's the one side of my story. The other side I didn't talk in our prep is, or maybe I did, which is that my mother was a school teacher, or is still, yeah. And so she was she was the intellectual side for me and the family. And so I was reading books at that time. Fortunately, there was no Netflix, there was no TikTok at that time. So books were my only way out. So I read books like crazy. I had read the Bible when I was 12 years old. I had read Mein Kampf, the Odyssey of Homer. I had read when I was 16. I had read the biography of Lenin. It's like I was eating books. I was not reading books. I was eating them, because that was outside of all the stress, outside of all the pressure, were books, and I was very interested. And so even so, I never did, and that's something I was struggling with a long time in my life. Even so, that I didn't have a formal academic academic courses, and I really didn't go to university. I was always well read, because that's what I needed always, not at the beginning at all to be well read, but that was my way out. I can tell you, like, the Old Testament of the Bible, that's the most incredible stories you can read. It's like the New Testament, that things get serious, but in the Old Testament, it's really like the fight stories, the love stories, and all. So all that was done, and it created this double Marco, or this split Marco, in a sense. So the one who was on the always there to deliver, always there to work, always there, and the one who and also the one who was linked to the earth, linked to the feeling of being outside, and the one who was quite intellectual in his approach, and always wanting to understand deeper, more. And so, yeah, that's me in my young age, without having the possibility to reconcile at all both.
Absolutely. I like that you've got these different markers, as you eloquently pointed out. Would the reading Marco have been just an element of escape, wanting to escape what was happening in the other life, where something inside of you found solace in the stories and in the tales that you were reading of how other people were living their life?
Absolutely. So with hindsight, obviously, you don't see that when at that age when you are in it, because you don't have the maturity. But when I look at it today, it was absolutely a way of getting out of that reality created by my father, by the farm, by the pressure I put on myself, and I was put on, and yeah, so I loved it. I love books.
You finally managed to escape, but you also landed yourself in yet another form of escape, which, as you have mentioned, was you took to the bottle.
Yes. Yes. You know, I am so blessed. I was never, even in these times where I didn't have any connection to my faith. I was always blessed. It never went so far that I got a real problem with this kind of stuff. Right. But I was always somehow I was always keen enough to walk out of it when it would have become. And there were a few of these moments in my life. And but you know, never like I was never an alcoholic, for example. Even so, today I don't drink alcohol anymore out of spiritual reasons. But I never was, and I don't have a problem with it. But at that moment, I saw if I go on, it's like these pivotal moments we have in our lives, and so many of us have them, and don't think about them, and don't give them enough praise for them. Actually, themselves, these praise is so important. The fact that I could walk out of it, even with all the fog and craziness and turmoil in my head, is. So I don't want to turn this into an podcast where I talk about God too much, but it is something which I feel now. I see how I was protected, because I don't know where I could take that power at that moment. Where could I get up at that day? And I remember like it was yesterday. I got up, I looked myself into the mirror, and I said, "Shit, you go on like that, Marco, you will never stop." And I stopped. And that these moments, I think everybody needs to get on these moments.
And I quite like that pivotal moment in and of itself, because it takes a redemptive ear to be able to hear those voices, and they are usually in and around us all the time. Was there something that you were already doing at that particular time that made you realize this voice? Because so many people hear it and then they ignore it.
Nothing. I literally, when I was a younger kid, I said I read the Bible, so I was very spiritually inclined. I grew up as a Catholic child. My mother has a very beautiful faith since always, but I let go of that during my teenage years, because this was not cool. That was not a way to get girls. So for me, that was not something which was on top of my mind at that moment. Now, it's really interesting that it goes that way. But now what is really interesting is that over the years, in very tough times, even so I was not calling myself neither spiritual nor religious nor nothing. Actually, I prayed over time, because sometimes I couldn't bear everything on my shoulders, and I asked for help. So it's interesting that still that was always there, but at these moments it was absolutely not. How can I say that? It was not
present.
It was not perceived to myself. I couldn't absorb my own words.
So you've mentioned a couple of words: liberation, released, and willpower, and these are very strong words, especially when it comes to personal growth in one's life. So the first bit, which is liberation, is when you liberated yourself from the entrapment of maybe being the heir to the farm and everything else that sort of came along with that. Why did you choose that word, liberated?
Because already then, even so I see that again with hindsight more clearly, because already then it felt for me like a prison. It felt not for me like me. And I couldn't put the hand on it, and I had no clue what I will do with my life. Literally no clue, because everything was turned and pushed to that direction. But it was a liberation, because I liberated myself from that perceived imposition I had. Because I like to talk about perceived, because it is, we decide what happens. We decide how we interpret, what is our interpretation of what happens to us. At that time, obviously, I didn't know that, and I had a deep-rooted hate for my father for a long time, and at that moment. But today, I really can say, and it's very important for me to use the word perception I had, because it is mine. No more, nor less.
Absolutely. And from that day, you said this was going to be the last. What did you go on and do?
Well, I said I helped a friend running his bar for a few months, and then beginning of that was end of the year. So beginning of that year, of the next year, I said, okay, I need a job. So I went out and I looked for a job. And I had no clue what job I want, and I didn't know. Then through some connections, I got a job in an at the Luxembourgish Court of Justice to copy papers. Well, now me being me and being interested in reading, I always say I was probably the best informed man on crime in the country, because I got all the dossiers in my office, and it was not so much work. So I worked for 2 or 3 hours. The rest of the time I took the ones which were really interesting, the dossiers, the files, and I read them. So it was an interesting time. But it was an important time, because after all that upheaval, all that stress, all that, like, well, talking about I was 21, 22, after all these years of having to pretend or pretending and so on, for me it was a time of calm, which gave me the possibility to recreate myself over time.
Absolutely. But all you were seeing was maybe criminal precedents or work of people that are doing the wrong thing in life. How would have that helped you recreate yourself? Or were you just afraid?
Not at all. Not at all. To be honest, these were stories. I liked them. I read them. But what was the calm, the fact there was no pressure, the fact that I could deliver an incredible good job to people who were grateful for that job without feeling a pressure, because the level of my commitment to my job was so big that they were happy, like they never had somebody delivering things to them like that, and so on. So that was, for me, it was liberating. Using that word again. That's still, what is that? Today's Liberation Day. No, I'm kidding. It was liberating in that sense that I didn't have to work and deliver under pressure or under threat anymore. I just did it because I wanted, because I was happy to see them happy that they could do a job, and so it's all good. So that was an important thing, an important aspect of it. So now the whole thing with what happened there was not some were interesting, some not. Yeah.
And maybe the work ethic came about obviously because you've already been used to doing hard work, and all you were doing was making copies.
So it's interesting, and I might do a 20 years leap in ahead now. Yes. When I was doing my coaching, just for a minute, but when I was doing my coaching certification 8-9 years back, I had peer coaching with people who did the same certification and so on. And then during one of these sessions, it really hit me. I can die on fear. I can bitch and moan. I can procrastinate till a moment, but I always deliver. And that is, I always use the F word, almost, that's freaking powerful. Because today I use that. It's like, I said, okay, well, no, let's not work on that presentation for a day. It's not a problem. You always deliver. I always go into a tunnel into my process, and I deliver. And that work ethic is for sure something which I am getting out of my time at the farm.
Right.
It's like, when there is time to dairy the cows, then there's time to dairy the cows. So you cannot do that 3 hours later, and then half of the cows will be sick. And so it's like, that's not working. So it's like, I always deliver. And that deep root, that's really, probably, it's really interesting to bring that up like that. But that is really one of the most deepest rooted beliefs, which I didn't know being one till I had that conversation a few years back.
And you're talking about obviously coaching and things of that nature. Was that you learning to be a coach, or were you being coached at that particular time?
That was me learning to be a coach. That was in my certification process. Yeah. So you in a coaching certification process, you obviously coach a lot of people, and a lot of people coach you, because you do that to each other. So you coach each other. Yeah.
Good stuff. So before you started Zenpreneur, you were helping build Luxembourg's digital economy. Maybe let us know what it is that you were doing during that time as well, because it's quite an interesting time that you now became.
Let me create a little bit of a thread between what we just talked about, farming and
Yes,
and
please.
my personal life, and then so I did a lot of different jobs after that job at the Court of Justice. I will not go through all of them, but at one moment in time, I got into a company which were selling technology, so switchboards, like phone switchboards. And I was always interested in technology. I had an email address quite early on, like 95, 96 already. So I was quite an early adopter, even so I was not good at it. And in that company where I sold that technology, I met, they had also an early internet company. And I met this guy who was running that, and we became friends. And at that time, so I jumped one thing, which was that which another pivotal moment in my evolution was when I started to read a lot of personal development books after leaving the farm. And at one moment in time, in 97, I went to see Tony Robbins. Maybe you know Tony Robbins. In Brussels at that time. It's like I said, this is now more than 25 years ago. And then I wanted to create, so I met this guy in this tech company, and I wanted to create a platform, early 2000s, around personal development and people, how to find their way through life, through challenges and different modalities and so on. Now, you have to understand, this was not the internet of today. There was no Stripe, there was no PayPal. You could not even monetize anything on the internet. It was impossible. The only way how you could do money with it was through advertisement, where classical companies just wired you money on your bank account. So, but as the dot-com bubble was about to burst, and it was obvious for everybody, not for the ones who had invested billions into it. And we were young, we had no billions, so we saw what was coming. We said, now we have a great team, because we set up a team. Now we have a great team. We have a great idea, but the idea is not working because we cannot monetize, not getting money for it. Because the idea was not to just do something, but it was to create something to earn. And then my friend from the tech company said, on the other internet company, I have an idea, and that's where we created the first company called Data Center Luxembourg. And I told him, I give you 5 years of my life, and then I will do what I have to do. Literally, that's what I told him in 2001. And it took me 17 years to do what I needed to do. But during these 17 years, I created internets, like an internet hosting provider, the leading internet hosting provider in Luxembourg. We created a European leader in domain name registration. We created a voice of IP company. We created a lot of stuff. And why did I become so influential in the Luxembourgish, because of a small country, Luxembourgish internet environment, is because when we created Data Center Luxembourg, my thesis was, or what I told everybody, I bring e-commerce and e-business to Luxembourg because out of Luxembourg you have less taxes and blah, blah, blah. So all that logic. And one day I had, at that time, for those older ones here who listen to this, I had AOL sitting in my office, American Online, and they said, amazing, we really want to set up shop in Luxembourg, but we need as much internet bandwidth ourselves than your country has in total. And it is not redundant here. So it hit me like a hammer. I said, well, I have a business now, and in essence, we cannot grow. And so I started to maniacally visit everybody all over Europe to explain them that we are mid of Europe. We are between the closest path between London and Frankfurt and so on. And I became very vocal about that. I started to be in papers and so on. So people were listening to that. And we started to create that environment together with other people. So I'm absolutely not the only one. I was probably the one from the business side, one of the only ones. Most others were from the government and from larger companies. And so yes, so we created an association which still runs, which is the Luxembourgish Commercial Internet Exchange, which was a driver to open up the Luxembourgish internet connectivity, which today is extremely good. And so that's why that is I talked about that. Now, having done that and having, like, it took me to 2007, 8, maybe 9 to have that really up and running. And then I was bored. So I thought, what am I doing now? Like, selling my servers and my racks, that's cool, but yeah, that's not really fun. So I said, we need to revolutionize the way how cloud services are distributed. And I created a cloud services company. So that was Lux Cloud. And that was a global company. I had customers. I had customers in Australia. So it was a global company. I had offices in Singapore. I was flying for red-eye for meetings to Melbourne, just like, okay, let's go for 36 hours to Australia. Totally crazy time. And it was amazing. I was just 10 years too early. So the business model was, I raised a lot of money for it. I could bring it to a point, and I'm still pretty sure that I could have made it really the way we wanted it. But then I had a cash crunch, and so we repurposed the company into. So my investors told me they will not go further, and I didn't needed a lot in comparison of what I already had raised. But yeah, that's how it is. That's the cash is king. And so what the company did then, we repurposed it because we had developed a huge amount of IP, a huge amount of cutting edge technology, which we then could license and so on. So that became another company. And I dropped out because I was burned out. And I was talking about the dark sides of business. After that resizing, I was at the deepest point, probably one of the most deepest point of my life. For like 9 months, I couldn't really having even one positive or joyful thought. And a lot of what I am doing today is to avoid anybody I touch to go there, because it's a very dark place. And I am very blessed and fortunate, and that I always find a way out. I found my way out alone, but alone.
Absolutely, and thank you so much
with his help, but
yeah,
for in a material sense alone. And yeah.
Thank you so much for taking us through that, and congratulations. I mean, I remember when, like you were talking about, the internet was coming in, a lot of people didn't quite understand what it was, and they didn't even understand the safety or the efficacy of it all. And I can only imagine when you're, like you say, in a small town where everybody knows each other, and they're like, how do you know how this technology is going to work? You maybe just came from the farm and things like that. So I can imagine you had to work twice as hard just to.
But it's really interesting. But for me, it was liberating. Again, that work.
Liberating.
It's amazing. It's Liberation Day, and it was liberating in that sense because nobody could have studied internet at that moment. Everybody was a newcomer. There were people having studied marketing, and they had a huge challenge working in it because they were all doing the things as it was done before. And so we could create a whole new world. We can fill 2 hours of podcast just talking about the incredible adventures we had while creating that, because we were literally creating the internet and the laws and everything. We weren't deliberately outside of what was said because it was totally not making sense. We were persecuted by half of the large companies in Europe, and they wanted to kill us, and so it was like to bankrupt us and so on. So we had all these things, and it was very exciting. But you know what happened? Especially after everything, like people now, you have to see. So I started first company when I was 26. Now we're talking about 15 years in, a little bit more. So it's like I was 41, 42 years old, and people telling me, oh, amazing what you have done. Oh, you're such an amazing entrepreneur, and. And I was thinking, no, it's nothing. It had no meaning for me. I didn't feel the meaning. I didn't feel that I had created anything. What did I do? What did I did. I know that now. But that moment, it was all void. And that is one of the biggest challenges a huge amount of founders and C-levels are feeling at one moment in their life, because they have all this done, but they've suffered so much through to get there that they have no joy. There is no joy anymore in anything what has been done. And so, and you asked the question, why are we, you asked the question at the beginning, I wanted to start with that. But my favorite question to any entrepreneur as a coach, and I think there's no one I worked with, I didn't ask the questions. Who the F are you doing this for? Huh? Even for a C-level, for somebody who is not the owner of the company, why are you going through? Why are you say you have to do it to be happy? Huh? It's not about success only, because success is, how do you define success? So if you define success as it is defined by most of the people on this planet, it is about amassing money and more money and more money. And how much is that? How happy are these people who do that? So some are very happy and they are really role models. Most are not. Most are really, really, really. And so how can I find that joy? It's not only about peace. It's really about that joy.
Like that, because so many people, like you say, they don't quite know why they're doing this, and then that then creates burnout and emptiness, and then
Absolutely.
there's a big crash landing. Now, with what you were doing, were there any early signs, or did you just have that deeper calling that you normally have? Were there signs that I think I'm cruising for a bruising here?
There are always signs, but you know, we human beings, we are excelling in lying to ourselves. So we are so powerful on telling ourselves stories which are not related to the truth. And so that's what happens. So you see that and say, oh, no, it's all good. I am okay. It's all fine. Oh, yeah, but now I will sell these shares to that company. That will give me another million on the account. It's all fine. What's going on? It's not a problem. Oh, everything's good. I'm good. I am happy. You know, I had this amazing vacation with my wife on Maldives. Oh, yeah, I'm happy. So all that blah, blah, blah it's just blah, blah. Because if you're very honest with yourself, and I said, there are people who do that intuitively, but most are not. But if you're honest with yourself, that's these signs are always there. I call it in my system, I call it the crack, the moment where you see that you cannot go on like that. These are the beautiful moments in life. Even so, very often they're very tough. It's very often when somebody is leaving us, when we are just going through a divorce, or we have a big challenge or a big smackdown in business and so on, where these cracks come up. But these cracks are actually taking us for at least a moment out of the reaction cycle of doing, I do, into the first question. When you have the crack, you ask yourself is, who am I? Who am I here? That's what you ask yourself. And then you're getting into the I am phases. The challenge with the I am phases is that you need to go beyond acceptance of reality as it is. And we don't want to accept most of the times reality. We don't want to accept, I didn't want to accept the fact that I will lose all this status when I let go of, when I walk out of this, I will lose all my status. I was on national TV at least once a year. I let go of that. That was not conceivable at that moment. So so what happens? You go back to the reaction cycle. I do, till there's a next crack. And only if we overcome the acceptance phase, that's where freedom lies. That's where liberation lies. To use the term again. Yeah.
I like that, because you literally can't climb the ladder of success with your hands full. So if your hands are filled up with all of these things that are weighing you down, it literally, that's why you got to let go and liberate yourself, But you're talking about something that is very difficult for a lot of people to grasp. And
I know.
it's like spiritual intelligence in a way that's why I keep asking the voice, the things, the messages that you're receiving. Is this something that is just a Marco thing, or is this available to everybody else? Because when you want to integrate that with how you run your business.
It's an amazing question. Prosper, thank you so much. Let me be bluntly honest. He is available to all of us. Now, we all have to decide if we want to have faith or not. And that's what it is. That's actually what it is all about. You decide to have faith. I have in my model, I talk about faith, little f or big F. Little f is me and my friends or my people around me. Big F is me and something really bigger than myself. And the access to that, and as said, I was raised on that level, but I totally refused it for a long time. But I always had an access to that. And everybody has an access to that. I told you, I was praying. Even so, I was not thinking I believe at that time, and I thought that's all jumbo mumbo. I was praying. So it was there. So everybody has that. And what I can give to anybody who's listening to this, who is in a tough spot, just think about the bigger than yourself. Think about the universe, spirit, God. Doesn't matter how you call the bigger than yourself, but just connect to it. And it's easy to connect. So it's, oh yeah, let's go fast through little things. So it's like, I always say the most difficult journey of a man and a woman is the one from the 18 centimeters from your prefrontal lobe to your heart. That's the most difficult path you are taking, because this one really loves you to stay here. But if you find the access to your heart, and that's easy, put your right hand on your heart every morning and think something positive, think something grateful. Be grateful for the breath you took, for whatever is around you. Don't try to be grateful for the end of the wars. I don't know where, because it's a little bit difficult these days. Be grateful for, it's raining today. That's great. We are in a country where we have enough food because it's raining a lot. Like, be grateful whatever you be grateful, because that creates this biochemistry and this capacity to see beyond the material. And what is beyond material is the spiritual. But as long as you're only staying in your prefrontal lobe, this one was not created to make us happy. This was created to make us survive. Literally. That's why we are the dominating species, is because we had the prefrontal lobe and we could start to communicate and to really do stuff together. Well, they find out that some whales can do the same now, but just saying, that's what's made us who we are. This one is making us happy. So we need to go into the heart. And then you can, and I just put that if you want to in the comments, but you can go into the researches done by Heart Math Institute, for example, who explains heart brain coherency and how it works. I can go into it, but I don't think it's the topic of our talk today. But every person has the capacity to be grateful at any moment. It just has to take the willpower to do so. So if life is imposed to you, you have no willpower. If you are if you're driving your life, you are having willpower, and you can have that willpower at any moment. So it's a decision.
I like that view, and as you've been using this word perception. Now, when somebody is in that state where that's taking full ownership of who they are, what it is that they do, and who they're becoming, that creates a lot of fear in a lot of people, as in you start questioning yourself, who am I to tell the world what to expect or how I'm showing up and things of that nature, because we haven't been taught to have that responsibility alone. Maybe you can tell us how somebody can actually own that aspect of that sort of connection, because that checkup from the neck up has been systemically severed.
I love it. I love it because the moment you're here, you are not alone. You are alone here. We're always, because we think we are the only one in this world who has this problem. We are the only one who is suffering like that. Nobody else. Talk to people who are in this state of mind. They always use, I am alone. I am nobody. Nobody else has my problem, and so on. I hear that every day with people who are thinking about coaching, and then they say, oh yeah, but no, my problem is really so specific. It's like, it isn't. The stories are specific, but the underlying challenges are never. And so if you are in your heart, that's the closest we get to God. So you're not alone. It's your decision. So it's faith or not faith. That's why this conversation will never find a common ground for everybody, because the ones who cannot believe, well, cannot have faith. So the ones who say we are always alone are alone. We take a step back. We are manifesting animals. So that's the difference between us and all. We manifest our world. So through our decisions and the way we run our lives, we manifest what happens. I manifested a life full of struggle and challenges, which is great because now I can talk about it, and that's great. But now I decided to not manifest that anymore, and I manifest a life of joy and connection. That's my decision. So I manifest that world. And so if you're going through the world and manifest your whole life negative things, then you will have negative things. And that decision is a conscious decision which you need to bring into your heart, because it starts here, because the brain, as said, is not there to make us happy. But when we really suffer, it will create solutions in our head, which it will, like, oh yeah, well, I could see life differently. I'll give you an example. During that time when I had to repurpose this company I talked about before, was one of the darkest times in my life. And I literally got up most of every morning up and said, how the F will I survive today? That was my first thought. I trained myself, years it took. I trained myself to get up every day with one thought. Today is the best day of my life. Now, how do you think I feel today, and how did I feel then? And how were the outcomes of my day then, and how are my outcomes of my days today? Today I am creating. I am always creating new. I create new opportunities. Everything flows. Now, the sneaky thing is when we are having the one and the other. So we have this positive side, and we also have the negative side, because then it's all messing up. So then it's a decision again, and that decision goes into to really follow up on that. And when you have bad times, is to connect to our faith.
Right.
And again, it doesn't matter. Is that the forest walk, or is that, call that spirit or the universe or God? I chose for myself to call it God. Is that real? It is real for me. And it is the only thing which matters, because it's real for me. Now, if somebody says, I don't believe in God, I said, that's real for him. So God is not existing for him. That's fine. It's his decision. I feel bad for him because he cannot access what I access, but he feels maybe bad for me because I cannot live the life he lives. Whatever. So we decide. We decide where we go, how we drive our life. And for years, I was one who was mostly always positive, but it was not grounded on faith. It was grounded on, let's change the world. Let's become the biggest entrepreneur, I don't know of what, and so on. But it was not grounded in something really deeper, bigger than myself. And you talked about spiritual intelligence. One of the 22 capacities of Yosi Amram's model of spiritual intelligence is purpose. Now, you know Simon Sinek, he talks about start with why, purpose, purpose, purpose. It's a spiritual capacity. Service is a spiritual capacity. If you are running a company and you are not able to serve, well, what are you doing? Somebody needs to buy, so you need to serve your customer.
You know what I like about all of this, Marco? It is sort of describing a way of being, somewhat akin to an identity, because you have to become the person that connects, integrates, and can actually receive that particular message. As you have said, everybody else is just out there, but they're not receiving. I mean,
Yes.
you know, they're not maybe integrated or really, really connected. And I'm quite interested because you use the term growth identity. What does that mean?
And I wanted to start with it now. You said, how can somebody do what you do? Because this is not something I am not, in that sense, not special. We are all very special, but in another sense we are not. Growth identity is asking yourself the basic questions first before you go into strategy or execution or whatever. And it is the way of, it is the capacity to ask yourself the question, who am I? Who am I? Ask yourself that question. Nobody really asks himself that question. Or is asking but don't give an answer. But sit yourself, who am I now? What? And then the second question is, what do I stand for? What are my core values? What is it? What are the non-negotiables for me? For me, my 3 core values, spirituality, joy, and courage. I know that. It's part of who I am. That gives me so much guidance in my life. The aim is always to be joyful, to feel joy. The aim is to be courageous. My first podcast 2 or 3 years ago, I thought I would die talking to somebody like that. So it's courage. And then my spirituality is grounding me to everything. So that's important. And then it is, why do I do what I do? Beyond money, purpose. Why do I do what I do? I do this. And I needed a long time to accept that. But what I do for foremost, and at the absolute first reason is to grow myself. And then I can only grow myself when I make other people grow. But I need to accept that I am not here with my Jesus complex. I won't have, no, it's about me. And I need to be honest with me, because I learn so much from my customers. When I go into companies right now, I run deep transformations in companies. It's really, sometimes it triggers me very deeply, because it's learning. I am learning, and I give. And that's what is important. So these 3, who am I? What are my core values? What is my purpose? Is my growth identity as a person, obviously, but also as a company. And how many companies? I had this conversation very recently with a US-based, one of the biggest coaching schools in the world, US-based, and I know very well the chief operations of that company. And she said to me, I explained to her this, and she said, "Oh, Marco, you cannot imagine how much this resonates to me." I said, "Why are you saying that?" "Well, you know, my CEO, she's there since 3 years. So she said, I'm there since 3 years. My CEO rolled out 4 strategies the last 3 years. Obviously, we always rolled out new strategies because the old one didn't work. Why? Because they don't ask the basic questions. If you don't root the strategy into the growth identity, you might be right. You might just be the lucky bastard who had to win a lottery and strategy aligns. But that doesn't happen often. And now put that in the context of AI, where we need as a companies to decide what are we standing for? Ethically, what are we standing for? Where do we go? And we don't do that, and we just create strategy based on whatever whim is out there.
I like that.
So you need to go down and you need to introspect. I call it, we're all into extrospection. It's all about the external. We try to create tremendous impact to the world. That's even the good. I met really, really great CEOs. I talk to them about this and they say, shit, yeah, I forgot. You're right. I was so into my day-to-day, my reporting to my board and then and my numbers, that I forgot that actually that's the basis I need to tackle. Let's go there. And today, in times of AI, I think you are not doing that. You are really putting at risk your business for mid or long term.
You see, every leader or every C-suite person, they would only care about the outside appearance because that's what's rewarded: the hustle, the output, the do and things of that nature. So as a coach and founder, what sort of leaders end up coming to you or sort of resonate with the work that you're doing, and what sort of transformations are they witnessing after they've worked with you?
You said it before, so it's like not everybody is ready to listen to this. Not everybody is ready to go down that road, but there are people. So I do that in different ways. I have created the Conscious Business Foundation Luxembourg chapter. So I talk about this way of seeing business very openly. Means that I create that funnel of people who are interested, and there are a lot of people, and more people, also owners and C-suites out there who need to feel meaning, who need to create meaning in their life. And so these are the ones who come to me, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then we go through that process and we obviously first ask the question, who are you now? And so we go through questionnaires to people in the company, outside of the companies, the stakeholders, to get this perception of who they think the company is. Obviously the owners too, so who they think the company is. There's already a lot to learn out of this process of questionnaires and interviews. But that's on what we base then the creation of what I call the growth identity, the workshop, which creates the growth identity, where we take several people out of the company and the founders and whoever, depends on the size of the company. It's really different first, but in essence, we go through a days of really a workshop where we really unearth this kind of thinking, and then we implement that into the company to all people in the company. We create ambassadors who help people to. So what we do when we go to the all hands meeting is that we focus mostly on the values, and we say, okay, here are the company's values. Let's now make them actionable in your environment. How is that actionable in your environment? And then we follow up and so on, and then we'll see. And it always evolves. It depends on the companies. Sometimes I'm there for a few months supporting that process. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes it very often also triggers, then when this is done, it triggers the real strategic conversation again with the founders, with the owners, to really go deeper. And then again, that's a communication back to the team. So it's like, depends. But what it is changing is it is aligning the way they all see what the company stands for. And values were mainly created by marketing agencies to put on the back of the reception so that everybody comes in and says, oh, wow, that's a value. But if you do that, that's probably the worst thing you can do for your company, because if your people in your company see these values and they know that they are not lived, they will either walk out, that's the best option, or they will quietly quit, and that's the worst option. They will stay, but they will not be there anymore. So you pay somebody who is not creating value anymore. And that's what happens. So we align that, and then it depends. Sometimes it goes great, fast. Obviously, as older the company, as more difficult it is, because corporate culture is something which grows over years, and it cannot be ungrown over in days or weeks. And yeah, it's a process. If there would be blueprint, hey, Prosper, I would be multi-billionaire. But there isn't. And there are people selling these blueprints, but they're not working.
Absolutely. You see, what I like about this, Michael, is when you ventured into the tech space, you were by definition a pioneer and a rookie at the same time. And as you have said, you were plus or minus 10 years ahead of your time. Now, I'm also sensing that this might be one of those times again where people have always done things this way. You know what I mean? They're always holding on to how it's always been done, and they're looking at last quarter versus this quarter, and they're saying, how can we improve on what we did last year? Are you running into some sort of misconceptions that people might actually have when it comes to conscious leadership or spirituality in business that you really want people to let go if they can, so that they can actually be aligned with who they want to become and where they're headed to?
Well, it all starts with their willingness to introspect. And that's the only thing which I am asking. I don't ask about spirituality or anything. Everybody is spiritual in his own right and own sense, if he knows it or he doesn't. But I literally, if there's an openness to introspect, then we can work. If I don't feel that, it's really difficult for me to work with a company, because you said it. I was 10 years too early in cloud. I am probably 10 years too early here, but I don't care, because it's what I need to do. It's what I am there for, and that's not only with companies. Also, it's making people, giving people the possibility to grow, being their tool, so that they can use. So some are ready, some are not. And I stopped trying to change everybody at every moment, because that is a very narcissistic way of doing things. It's, if they're ready, they're ready. I needed literally 53 years to be where I am now. So who am I to judge somebody who is not as fast as I think he could be? It's totally useless thinking.
And finally, Marco, I mean, many of our viewers are also on their journey. They're just trying to figure things out, and they're on their way to become. Where can they go on the internet to find what it is that you can do or help them with, or maybe be a part of this growth identity workshop that you've
so thank you for asking. So yes, they can go on www.zentrapreneur.com. I think you can somewhere put that in the video, and they can ping me on LinkedIn if they want to. That's always the easiest. Just look me up, LinkedIn/LI/Marco Houwen. Just look me. There are not many Marco Houwens. I don't. There's actually one who fakes me. That's the one who has 200 followers. Don't take that one. Take the one who is 10,000, and and contact me. It would be cool.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes, so that people will actually find their way to your properties there on the internet. Now, I just thought it would be remiss of me not to ask this, Marco, before we let you go. You have been describing true success as joy and alignment. And as you know, fish don't see the water that they swim in. People think, I'm successful just because my name is on some sort of business card or written on some door. What does a joyful work day actually look like for you personally now?
Where I have impact, where I can work on things which have impact. I am happy. Today is a great day. Now in 20 minutes I have a coaching with the CEO. Then I meet somebody I didn't talk to for the last 10 years, just popped up to see. And then I coach a management board. And then I have a few internal conversations how to access more conscious businesses. So it's about the impact. And then there is what I call Champions League, which is when we are just able to love what we do because we have to, because it's there and we need to do it. So and that's what we can call spiritualizing your work, is you just love what you do. Point. I'm working on that one.
Absolutely. Well, I can't thank you enough for the time that you spent with me today. I mean, your life story and your experience have got so much that people can actually learn from. I mean, you went from soil to software and now you're in the soul, and so many people get lost along the way, but you've always been able to be, like we have established, 10 years ahead of the pack. And I can't wait to see what people are going to do with this information today. So thank you so much for reminding us that growth isn't just about adding more. It's literally about aligning more deeply and finding joy. And I hope that you definitely will be embodying that for all the people that now are a part of your journey.
Thank you very much, Prosper. It was a big pleasure talking to you today.
Absolutely. And for those that are watching right now, if you actually felt the spark, that quiet yes inside, I encourage you to go check out Marco's Growth Identity program. I'll put all those links in the show notes there so that you can actually get started on your own journey. And if this episode, helped you see success a little bit differently, I encourage you to maybe share this with somebody who's ready to just find peace in their performance, because so many of us are just working and really have nothing to show for it. And as Marco has said, it is all about status. And it's the moment you let go of that, that is the end of it all. You literally have to start again from scratch. But if you've got that inner joy and inner peace, then you are not starting from zero. You are literally starting from your own platform. So while you're at it, make sure you subscribe wherever you're listening right now, either YouTube or Spotify, because in our next episode, from what I hear, we're going to be diving into ideas that help you create a happier and more prosperous existence. Until then, keep growing, keep glowing, and remember, prosperity starts from within. Bye for now.